Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Chaf Vav of Masechta Pesachim, Daf 26. I'd say for most of the page we're really discussing, continuing the machlokas at the end of the Daf yesterday between Abaye and Rava about getting hana'ah without intention, and if you can get away from it, and what if you can't get away but you have intention to get hana'ah. So that's sugya. And then at the end we get to a discussion about ovens and burning fires with shells of orla. So that's today's daf. There's some interesting stuff along the way. Let us begin on daf Chaf Vav Amud Aleph, 3 lines from the top. Amar Abaye Mina'aminala. Says Abaye, from where do I get this from? What did Abaye say? Abaye's opinion was that when you, it was a pretty interesting machlokas about what happens if you're just walking down the street and all of a sudden you, let's say, smell a really good smell of avodah zarah. So you didn't intend to smell it, but it kind of came your way. Maybe you had kavanah, maybe you're enjoying it, maybe you're not. So Abaye had said it's mutter. Rava had said it's asur, and the question is, in what context do they argue? So, the last thing that we had said was that they argue in a case where you were you were unable to leave, right? Like you had to be in the place and you couldn't get out of there, but you had intention to get benefit from it. And Abaye nonetheless said that according to Rabbi Yehuda, it would be permissible, because Rabbi Yehuda doesn't really care about your intention, and since you were in a place that you had to be there and you couldn't get out of it, therefore it would be acceptable. So Amar Abaye says, Abaye Mina'aminala, how can I prove it to you? The Tanya, as we learn in the Brisa, Amru Olav Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. This is very, very interesting. That they said about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Sheyoshev b'tzilo shel heichel v'doresh kol hayom kulo. Isn't that awesome? I love it when, we can get a glimpse into people who mamish lived during the time of the Beis HaMikdash. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, the teacher of Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer, which trickles then down, of course, to Rabbi Akiva and then Rabbi Meir, and so on and so forth until us. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, they said about him that he would sit in the Beis HaMikdash and he would teach the halachas of the Chagim. So like the halachos of Pesach, 30 days before Pesach, let's say, and he would sit in the shade of the Heichal, V'dorish kol yom kulo, and give shir all day. So now, meaning he would sit in the temple courtyard, and the shade from the sanctuary would be giving shade in the temple courtyard. Now, it was a situation of lo efshar, right? A situation of he had to be there. He had to be teaching the people before the Yontif. So he had to be there, but umiskaven. Nonetheless, he was he was enjoying the shade of the Heichal. So it says the Gemara, "V'hacha d'lo efshar u'mechaven." So here we're talking about a situation where there was no choice; he had to be giving the shir, and yet he was enjoying sitting in the shade of the Heichal v'shari, and it was permitted. So Abaye says, you see, that a situation of when you had to be there, you had no choice, but you nonetheless intend to get benefit, so then it is permitted. What, of course, would have been the problem? The assumption is that the problem is that you cannot benefit from, right, that the Heichal is Kodesh, is holy, and you can't benefit from something that's holy. It would be Me'ilah. Rava Amar Shani Heichal d'Lesocho Asui. Rava says that's not a good proof, because the Heichal, the sanctuary, is really made for what's inside of it, not what's outside of it. Outside of it, it's really okay to get benefit from its shade. Amar Rav Mina'aminala. So now says Rava, how can I prove to you that in a situation where you have no choice, but you are nonetheless getting benefit and enjoying it, that it would not be acceptable? The Tanan, as we learn in the Mishnah, Lulin Hayu Psuchin Ba'alias B'Kodesh HaKodashim, that there were skylights in the Kodesh HaKodashim, Shebohen Mishalshlin Es HaUmanim B'Tevos Kedei Shelo Yazunu Eineim Beis Kodesh HaKodashim. Isn't that crazy? Imagine you are a worker I don't know, maybe I don't know what kind of specialty you do, but you're in construction, and you get a call that the Kodesh HaKodashim needs some maintenance. So the way that you would get in there is that they would lower you into the Kodesh HaKodashim in a box, and you would basically just be able to see that which you need to see to do your work, but nothing else. So now, here we have a situation of Delo Efshar, V'acha Delo Efshar. Here's a situation of, we have to let this guy in, because there's maintenance that needs to be done. V'kam Mechaven V'asar. And we're concerned that if he's looking around the Kodesh HaKodashim while he's doing his work, well, he's going to be intending to get benefit, by looking around. And therefore, we want to prevent that. And even though he had to be there anyways, we still wanted to prevent him from looking around. Therefore, we see that it is forbidden, even in a situation where you kind of had to be there. Now, the Gemara says, V'tizbra, is that really a good proof? V'amr Reb Shimon ben Pazi, Amr Reb Yeshua ben Levi, Mishum bar Kapara, Kol umayr v'reich ein b'hem Mishum me'ila. That sound and sights and smells are not subject to the laws of me'ila, of getting benefit from something that's sacred. So, it's not, there wouldn't be something strictly wrong with him looking around in the Kodesh HaKodashim, because sights, visions do not constitute benefiting from that which is holy. So then why wasn't he allowed to look around? Why did they lower him in a box? Because it's the Kodesh HaKodashim. We don't just want people going in and looking around. It has a special status, and therefore, even though strictly speaking, a person could look around the Kodesh HaKodashim, it wouldn't be considered me'ila, but we treat the Kodesh HaKodashim with particular respect, and therefore, if somebody has to go in to do maintenance, we would lower him in a box, and so that he could focus only on what he needs to focus on and nothing else. There are those who say, how do I know that lo efshar mechaven is aser? That sounds and visions and smells are not subject to the laws of me'ila. Me'ila hu deleka ha isurei. Now, they're not subject to the laws of me'ila, but they are nonetheless also, right? You might not have to bring a korban me'ila for them, but you're still not allowed to, right? An ashram me'ilos, but you're still not allowed to smell and see and listen. So, my love. My basketball friend is playing basketball. My love, le'osan omdim b'fnim. And mistame, it's talking about the people that are inside of the heichal, that they're not allowed to, and that they have to be there anyways. They're there doing the avoda, they're doing the service in the Beis HaMikdash. So they are, so it's lo efshar, they have to be there anyways. And yet we're saying that even though they might not have to be in ashram me'ilos, but it's still going to be not allowed. So we see lo efshar u'mechavin would be a problem. So so we say no, it's talking about the people standing outside. They are not allowed to get benefit from these things, and we're going to see in a minute what exactly that means in practice. But the Kohanim, you can argue that lo efshar u'mechavin, right, that they have to be there doing that avodah anyways, and if they have intention to benefit from the smells of the Ketores or whatever it is, so that would be okay. So Gufa, we just said Amr Reb Shimon ben Pazi, Amr Reb Yeshua ben Levi, Mishum bar Kapara, Kol umayr v'reich ein b'hem Mishum me'ila. That sounds and visions and smells, they're not subject to the halachos of me'ila, of getting benefit from the sacred. V'reich ein bo Mishum me'ila. Is that really true? That smells are not subject to the halachos of me'ila. V'atanya, but we learn in a brayso, mefatim es haktoris l'islamid ba. If somebody is constructing the incense, right? The Ketores was made up of I believe, 11 ingredients, and it was a very special thing. And it says in the Torah that if anybody makes their own private ketores, right, Isha sher yaisa kamua la'riach ba v'nichras, that if somebody makes his own ketores because he enjoys the smell so much, he's going to get kares. Now, if somebody is putting together this ketores in order to learn how to do it, or l'moser l'tzibor, he's going to donate it to the public, so then potter, he's not chayiv kares if he smells the incense. La'riach ba chayiv. But if he makes this incense so that he can smell it, well then he will be chayiv kares. V'amariach ba potter el shemoal. Now, somebody who smells the regular ketores from the Beis Hamikdash, so then he's not chayiv kares, but he's over on meila. Oh, so we had said that on smells there's no din of meila, but now we're saying that if you smell the ketores, so you might not be chayiv kares, but you're over on meila. So Elo Amar Papa says Papa Kulamaya ein ben mishum meila, that sounds and visions are not subject to the halachos of meila, lefi she'ein ben mamish, because there's nothing physical about sounds and visions. V'reach, and when it comes to smell, la'achar shetayla tamruso ein bo mishum meila hovanaises mitzvaso. Oh, very, very, very interesting. And when it comes to the ketores, so once already it's been burnt, and the mitzvah of burning the ketores is done, so whatever smell is now still lingering after that, or whatever smell emerges from that, you would not be violating meila, because the mitzvah is already done. So as long as the mitzvah has not yet been done, you have to be concerned about meila and smelling the ketores. But once the ketores has been burned and the mitzvah has been done, so then you no longer have to be concerned about meila. So now the Gemara asks an interesting question. So does this mean that whenever you have a situation where the mitzvah has already been done, so then you no longer have to worry about meila? That's not a concern anymore. But what about Truma Sadeshan? Who could tell me what Truma Sadeshan is? Because I don't know. Truma Sadeshan is every single day they would take a little bit of the ashes from on top of the mizbeach, and they would put it next to the mizbeach. That was one of the things that they would do in the Beis Hamikdash every single day. So now when it comes to Truma Sadeshan, the nicest mitzvah, so that once already you put it next to the mizbeach, or really once already you take a shovelful of ashes, so you've done the mitzvah of Truma Sadeshan, and nonetheless v'yesh ba meila. And nonetheless, you have to be concerned about meila, even though the mitzvah has already been done. Tichsev, as the pasuk says, v'sam eitz al mizbeach, that you'll take the ashes and you'll put it next to the mizbeach. Now there's a different girsa here, which I'm going to read. Shelo yimalu ba'acherim. You put it next to the mizbeach so that nobody else should get benefit from these ashes. Shehei kulo eitz al mizbeach, that it should also be so that it should all be next to the mizbeach, so that nobody should get benefit from it. So here we have a situation where the mitzvah has already been done. You've already taken these ashes, and yet we're concerned that people might get benefit from it. So the Gemara answers, Mishum davu truma sadeshen uvigdekuna shnei ksuvin aboyin ke'echad v'chol shnei ksuvin aboyin ke'echad ein milamdin, period. Oh. So the Gemara answers that truma sadeshen and bigdei kuna are shnei ksuvin aboyin ke'echad. What is shnei ksuvin aboyin ke'echad? What shnei ksuvin aboyin ke'echad is what's it called when you take something and apply it to something else? A binyanav, I think, is what that's called. But anyways, I don't want to get into the technicalities because maybe I'm not right about it. But anyways, in general, the idea is, if you see something written in one context, so immediately we want to say, well, why don't we apply it to another context, which is exactly what we're doing over here, right? Meaning we're saying that when it comes to the ketores, once the mitzvah has already been done, you can get benefit from it. You're not going to be over on meila. Now, we're asking a question from Truma Sadeshan. That Truma Sadeshan, once the mitzvah has already been done, you still have to be concerned about meila. And therefore what we want to say is that, well, just like by Truma Sadeshan, we have to be concerned that even once the mitzvah has been done, you still are not able to get benefit from it. So therefore, we naturally want to apply it to every case in the Torah, including Ketores, and to say that who cares that the mitzvah has already been done. Just like by Trumas Hadeshen, once the mitzvah has already been done, we still have to be concerned about Me'ilah. So also by all other mitzvahs, including Ketores, even once the mitzvah has already been done, we still have to be concerned about Me'ilah. So that would be what we want to do. However, there's something that's called Shnei Ksuvin Abayin Ke'echad. And what that means is that, however, if there are two instances where we could show that once the mitzvah has already been done, you still have to be concerned about Me'ilah, well then, what ends up happening is that we say, well that's weird. Why is the Torah specifying in only two cases that even once the mitzvah has already been done, you still have to be concerned about Me'ilah? Why didn't it just say in one and then we would apply it to all? From the fact that it specifically specifies by two particular cases, two particular instances, that even once the mitzvah has already been done, you still have to be concerned about Me'ilah, that implies that it's only those two. But all the other cases, all the other instances, once the mitzvah has been done, you would not have to be concerned about Me'ilah anymore. And therefore, if we could say that we have two instances, right, and we're saying here it's Trumas Hadeshen and also Big Day Kahuna, which we're going to explain in a second, in those two cases, once the mitzvah has been done, you still have to be concerned about Me'ilah. So it's only those two cases, but nothing else, and that's why by Ketores, once the mitzvah has been done, you can get benefit from the smell. So the Gemara says 3 lines before it gets wide, Mishum Dahabu Trumas Hadeshen Big Day Kahuna Shnei Ksuvin Abayin Ke'echad, because Trumas Hadeshen and Big Day Kahuna are two psukim that have the same, particular rule taught by them. Whenever you have a situation where there is a particular rule that is written in only two contexts, well then ein melamdin, you cannot generalize that rule. Trumas Hadeshen hada amaron. So Trumas Hadeshen is what we said, that even once they separated these ashes, we still have to be concerned about Me'ilah. Big Day Kahuna dichsiv. And what's the case? What are these Big Day Kahuna that we're talking about? What are these garments of the priests? So as dichsiv, as the pasuk says, v'nicham sham, that he will leave them there. Melamed shetun geniza, which teaches that we have to put them away. We have to bury them. So this is talking about the garments that the Kohen Gadol wore on Yom Kippur when he went into the Kodesh HaKodashim to do the avoda. So he wore these white garments of the Kohen Hedjot. He wore that when he went to do the avoda, and the pasuk says that once it says v'nicham sham, that it will just leave them there once he's done, and what we learn from there is that you have to discard them, essentially. You have to bury them, so that, because you're not allowed to use them anymore. So we see that once the mitzvah has been done with them, we still have to be concerned about Me'ilah. So since we have two cases, Trumas Hadeshen and Big Day Kahuna, where even once the mitzvah has been done, we're still concerned about Me'ilah, so we could say it's only those two cases, but no other cases. What? No. So this works according to the rabbis, who say that that's in fact what happened, that you're not allowed to do anything with these garments that the Kohen Gadol wore. You have to bury them. But what about according to Reb Dosa, who argues and he says that actually, he's not allowed to, right? So what does it mean that he leaves them there? That he shouldn't use them on any other Yom Kippur. But a Kohen Hedyot, a regular Kohen, is allowed to use these garments. So in that case, there's no issue of Me'ilah anymore. And if that's the case, well then we only have one example of when, once the mitzvah has been done, we still have to be concerned about Me'ilah. And that would be Trumas Hadeshen. And therefore, naturally, we're going to want to say, well, if it's an issue by Trumas Hadeshen that you can't get benefit after the mitzvah has been done, we should apply it to all mitzvahs. So, Mishum dahavu Trumas Hadeshen ve'egla arufa shnei ksuvin abayin ke'echad. So the Gemara answers, well, it's because Trumas Hadeshen and Egla Arufa are two that by egla arufa as well, right? If you find a dead corpse in the middle of nowhere, so then you have to find the closest city. Then you take a calf that has never done any work or anything like that, and you throw it and you kill it. So v'chol shnei ksuvin aban ke'echad em lamdin, and you can't learn it from out from shnei ksuvin aban ke'echad. Anichel man da'amar em lamdin. So period. Fine. So therefore, right. So by the egla arufa, you basically kill this calf, and then you just leave it there. You can't get any benefit from it. So we see even once the mitzvah has been done, you still can't get benefit. So we see that Trumas Hadeshin and egla arufa are shnei ksuvin aban ke'echad. Therefore, it's only in those two cases that once the mitzvah has been done, you are nonetheless not allowed to get any benefit from it. But no other cases, and therefore Ketores you'd be allowed to get benefit from after the mitzvah has been done with it. Well, this works out if you say that shnei ksuvin aban ke'echad ein melamdin. But if you are the opinion who says that who cares, even if you have two contexts where we see that once the mitzvah has been done, you still have to be concerned about me'ilah. That doesn't mean that it's only limited to those two contexts. You could still generalize it. Well, if that's the case, then why aren't we generalizing it to Ketores? So tremi ute ksive ksiv v'samo ksiva arufa. Well, nonetheless, Trumas Hadeshin and egla arufa are unique in that each one has their own mi'ut. When it says by Trumas Hadeshin it says v'samo, that you will place it next to the mizbeach, and by egla arufa it says ha'arufa, right? This particular egla arufa. So, but to the exclusion of other cases, so only these two cases, once the mitzvah has been done, you are not allowed to get benefit from it, but that wouldn't apply to other cases. Tashma komenir ichnisa lirivka vidasha kshera bishvil shatinak vitidosh psula. This is talking about an egla arufa. So when it comes to egla arufa, so again, it's talking about we found a dead body in the middle of nowhere. We don't know who killed this person, and they find the closest city. They take out the elders of that city, take a calf. It's at the end of Parshas Mishpatim, I think. No, not Mishpatim, Shoftim. And they kill the calf. They bring it down to Nachal Esan, to a barren place, and they kill the calf over there. Now, this calf that they bring has to be a calf. It says, right, what does the pasuk say over there? It says, Eglas bakar asher lo ubad ba asher lo mashcha ba'ol. A calf that never did any work. Okay, so now the question is, what's considered work? So ichnisa l'rivka. So if the owner of this calf brought this calf, put this calf together with some other calves who were threshing, vidasha, and now he put this calf there only so that the calf can nurse from its mother. And while it was nursing, it also did some threshing. So kshera, that's okay. You could still use it's still considered as if it didn't do any work, and you can use it as an egla arufa. Bishvil shatinak v'tidosh psula. But if he intended that he was going to feed two birds with one seed, that he was going to that this calf would nurse, but also do some threshing work, well then it can no longer be used as an egla arufa. Oh, so going back to our original shaila. So here's a situation of lo efshar, he's got a nurse, and the owner is intending for him to do work. We're saying that it's a problem, that now the egla arufa is this calf cannot be an egla arufa. So we see that lo efshar v'kam michavin is aser. Shiny asam dichsev asher lo ubad ba mikol makom. So the Gemara says no, it's different, it's unique by egla arufa because it says asher lo ubad ba, which is passive, that like mamish, no work has been done bichlal with this animal. Well, afilu reishanami. Well, if that's the case, then how come in the reisha, in the first part of this what was it, Mishnah, Brisa, I guess, we said that if he put the calf together with the other ones to nurse, but he didn't intend that the calf should thresh, then it's kshera. But if we're saying ubad ba, reishalo ubad ba means any kind of work, well then, even if it was unintentional, it should disqualify this calf. So halo damya ela leha. Oh, so the Gemara says that egla arufa is similar to the following. The following being para aduma. Para aduma, we make a gzeir shava between para aduma and egla arufa, that they both need these calves that have never done any work. And we say by a para aduma that shachan alea of kshera, that if a bird rests on the back of a para aduma, kshera, it's okay. If a bird kind of just lands on the back of a para aduma, it's not considered as though this calf, this animal, cow, did work by carrying this bird. But if a male bull mounted this cow, well, then it can no longer be. It's no longer a kosher para aduma. My time. How come? Amr Papa. So Papa says, you ready? Iksiv avad v'karinon avad ada avid ba ihu. So if so basically the pasuk in the context of egla arufa says asher lo ubad ba, okay, that it wasn't worked, which is passive. Now, but it's written asher lo avad ba. It's written ayin beis dalid, but it's read ayin vav beis dalid. So it's read avad, it's written avad, but it's read ubad. So Papa says, look, if it would have been written as avad and we would read it as avad, so then ad avid be'ihu, then the owner himself would have to intentionally have the calf do work in order for it to be considered work. Iksiv ubad v'karinan ubad afilu memela nami. And if it would have been written ubad passive and we read it ubad passive, so then it would basically include any forms of work, even like in the Reisha of that brisa, where the animal was just nursing and then also threshed on its own. But now that it's written avad, but we read it ubad, well then it's shtickle combination. So ubad dumya de avad. So now it's kind of passive work, but has some characteristics of active work. What does that mean? Ma'avad denichale af uba denichale. So just like if a person would be proactive about this animal doing work, clearly it would be in his interest. So then even passive work, it would have to be in his interest. And therefore, for example, by para aduma, so when this bird just lands on the back of the para aduma, like, I don't know, it's not in the interest of the owner, like it makes no difference to him. However, if a bull mounts this para aduma, well then it is in his interest. They'll get little baby para adumas. So therefore that would be a problem. Now to bring it back to the egla arufa as well, so if he is putting this calf together with its mother so that it can thresh intentionally, so then it would be possible. But if he was just putting the calf there to nurse and it threshed on its own, so then it would be acceptable. And apparently, I don't know, there's some argument that I saw in the article on a note that maybe you can say that he dafka doesn't want this calf to be threshing because it's like not good for the calf or something. I don't really get it. But the point is that he would have to specifically have intention for this, or it would have to be in his interest for this work to be done. Says the Gemara, Tashma, come in here, Aveda. If you find a lost object, lo yishtachena lo agabi mita v'lo agabi magod litzorko. If you found a lost object, if you found like a lost sheet of sorts, lo yishtachena agabi mita, don't spread it out on a bed, v'lo agabi magod, or not in some kind of a peg, litzorko. Because you want that, because you need a sheet for your bed or something. Don't do that. Avashotcha litzorko. But you'd be allowed to spread it out if you need to use it to preserve the garment in some way. Agabi mita v'agabi magod. I'm sorry. Havashotcha litzorka agabi mita v'agabi magod. Period. But you would be allowed to spread it out on a bed or a peg if it's in the interest of this garment, to save this garment. Nizdamnu lo orchin. If guests came over, well then lo yishtachena lo agabi mita v'lo agabi magod. Well, if guests came over, do not use this sheet that you found and spread it out on like a bed or a peg bein letzorka, bein letzorko. And this is whether it's going to benefit the sheet to be spread out, because otherwise it'll get ruined somehow, or whether it's because you just want to impress your guests. Either way, it would not be allowed. Now, so here's a situation of lo efshar v'kam mechaven. Here's a situation of you have to spread out this sheet because otherwise it's going to get ruined. Yet at the same time, you're intending to get benefit from it, in front of your guests. And we're saying that it's not allowed. So there you go. Lo efshar v'kam mechaven is also. So the Gemara answers, shiny awesome, that actually it's different in that case, the kalila, because it's not going to be good for the sheet to be spread out. Imishum enabisha, imishum ganove. Interesting. Either because some kind of ayin hara, I don't know, some kind of evil eye, if you're going to put out this sheet that you found that belongs to somebody else, or because you don't really necessarily know your guests all that well. Maybe they're thieves and they might steal it. So don't spread it out. But it's not necessary to teach that lo efshar v'kam mechaven is aser. Tashma, come in here. This is a Gemara that we saw in Masechta Shabbos, I think maybe even more than once. Mochreksus mochen kedarkon. That when it comes to kilayim, but not that kind of kilayim, not kilei akarim, that stuff's impossible. This is just regular old kilayim, wearing wool and linen together. So if you have somebody who's selling kilayim, selling garments of kilayim, so mochen kedarkon, so you're allowed to wear them. If you're a salesman and you're walking around town with all these garments to sell, so you can wear them, even if they're shadnis. As long as in the summer you do not have the intention of benefiting from the clothes to protect you from the sun, and in the winter you have no intention of wearing the clothes to protect you from the rain, so then it would be acceptable. You can wear these garments in the context of your work. Now the people who were, wanted to be particularly careful nonetheless, so they would take the garments and rather than wearing them, they would kind of just throw them over their shoulder with some kind of a stick. So here we have a situation where it was efshar, right? Even just a regular salesman, he could do like the tznuin, and he could avoid putting on the clothing. He could just put them on a stick behind his back. But as long as he's not intending to get benefit from them, as we said, as long as he doesn't intend in the winter to protect himself from the rain or in the summer to protect himself from the sun, so then he would be allowed to put on this clothing. So we have a situation of efshar v'lo michaven, and we're saying it's mutter, just like Abaye had said, according to Reb Shimon, in the first way of understanding the machlokas at the end of the day yesterday, that Reb Shimon would say davar she'eino miskaven is mutter tiyuvta l'man demasni lishnakama derava tiyuvta. Therefore, it's a kasha according to the man d'Amar, who understood like the first way of understanding the machlokas between Rava and Abaye. According to Rava's opinion, it would be a problem, because Rava would say that Reb Shimon would not apply davar she'eino miskaven in that case, and he would say it's also. But here we seem to be saying that efshar v'lo kam mechaven is mutter. Interesting. V'lo yasig bo v'chulei. Finally, I think it's been a while. I think we're finally getting back to our Mishnah. It's been 5 days or so. Now our Mishnah said that once you're no longer allowed to eat chametz, so then you're not allowed to get benefit from chametz, and you're also not allowed to light your oven or stoves. Now the Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Tanu she'esiko b'klipe orla or b'kashin shekilei akarim. If you have an oven that you fueled with the shells of orla, right? You have fruits within their first 3 years. Let's say you have pomegranates, and you take the rinds of the pomegranates and you use that to light your oven. Now we had said yesterday, or the day before, or maybe even the day before that, I can't remember exactly, but we had said that orla is asur ba'achila and asur ba'anah, so you would be unable to use it to light your oven. So obikashin shekilei akarim, or if you use these stalks of kilei akarim, which we also learned is asur ba'achila and asur ba'anah. So chadash yutatz, so if it is a new oven, break it. Yashon yutzan. If it's an old oven, Oh man, what is yutzan? I actually meant to look it up, but shel yefu behesek zeh v'nimtza shel yanena. Yeah. Oh yeah. So I understood it to mean like sonain, like cold, like just let it cool down. Meaning if it's a new oven, okay, and the point being, if it's a new oven, and kilu, the first time that you light the new oven, it really solidifies it and makes it. It's like the makib patish, right? It really makes it. It finishes it as a proper oven. So if the first time that you lit this oven, it was with this forbidden flame, well then you have to break it. Yashan, but if it's a old oven, so then yutzan. I think what it means is that just let it cool down. Because you're not sort of completing the oven. You're not like literally like baking this usur fire into the oven itself, right? Because that would only be by the first time. But if it's an older oven, so then you're not really like baking this isur via its flame into the oven. So then just let it cool down and then light it with proper flames. Okay, now what happens if you are baking a bread? So you have an oven, you slap some bread onto the side of the oven, and you light a fire, and it's a fire of orla or kilei karim. So Rebbe Omer apas asur. So Rebbe says you can't eat that bread because the bread is being baked with the heat of kilei karim or orla, and it's going to be a problem. Chacham Omer apas muteres. The Chacham say, meh, it's okay, don't worry about it. We're not concerned that the orla is going to be transferred into the bread by its fire, We're not concerned about that. Bishla agabik echalim. If you, I think it's like a bagel, I don't know, if you have these or klipe orla and stuff, and you burn them, and now they become coals, and then I guess you boil the dough in water on the coals, divrei hakol, mutter, everyone agrees that would be acceptable because the orla and kilei karim is not getting into the bread. Now, v'atanya ben chadash ben yashan yutzan, but we have another brayso that says that if you light a fire with orla or kilei karim, whether the oven is new, whether the oven is old, just let it cool down, no big deal, you don't have to break it. Okay, so what do? On the one hand, the reisha of the previous brayso said that a new oven you would have to break because you're like breaking this isur into you're like baking this isur into the oven. Yet we have another brayso that says that even if the oven is new, don't worry, you don't have to break it. So lokasha, it's no problem. Harebi v'arabana. So the Gemara wants to say, okay, it's no problem. The first opinion is that of Rebbe, right? Rebbe had said that if you're baking bread and you're using fire of orla or kilei karim, so then the bread is going to be no good because the isur got baked into the bread. So we'll say that he'll apply the same logic to the oven as well. That if it's the first time that you're lighting this oven, so then the isur is being baked into the oven, and therefore you're going to have to break the oven. Whereas the second brayso is the Chacham who said that even a bread you would be able to eat, and certainly the oven would be okay. So now the Gemara is not so satisfied. The Gemara says, I'm not convinced that this is Rebbe's opinion. I'm not convinced that Rebbe would say that a new oven would have to break. Because what we do know is that Rebbe says that if you bake a bread with a fire of orla or kilei karim, so then that isur is going to be baked into the bread. But now, if you take away the bread, and you have a new oven, and you bake, you burn it, you have a fire there, and it gets baked into the oven. Okay, so while Rebbe might say that the orla or the kilei karim is now baked into the oven, but what's the concern? You're not going to eat the oven, meaning what's the problem going to be? The problem is going to be that, well, then you're going to take some dough and you're going to slap it on the wall of the oven. Then and the next time when you go to bake a bread, so you're going to use mutter fire, sure, but the heat coming from the walls of the oven is going to be coming from an usur oven. So the Gemara says that Rebbe might not mind. Meaning Rebbe was concerned when the heat was going directly into the bread that you're eating. But if this is already the second time that you're using the oven, and now the heat is going to be coming from this fire, and maybe also from the walls of the oven, part of it which is mutter, part of it which is asur, Rebbe might not say that that's necessarily an issue. Therefore, you wouldn't have to break the oven. So Ela Lokasha Rabbi Eliezer or Rabbanan, rather it's Machlokas Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbanan. The first brisa, the ratio of the first brisa is Rabbi Eliezer, the second brisa is the Rabbanan, and we're going to hold it here. We will get to their opinions tomorrow. So that was Daf Chav Vav Masechta Pesachim. So the main theme, I think, for most of the daf was that concept that we were discussing yesterday about lo efshar v'kam mechavin, efshar v'lo kam mechavin. Honestly, the only thing that was somewhat affirmative or whatever or clear was that we had a kasha based on the mochrei ksus, based on the people who sell kilayim, that they were able to that they were allowed to wear the kilayim, even though they technically could have put it behind their shoulders, and that was efshar v'lo kam mechavin, and it's mutter, like Abaye explains Reb Shimon, not like Rava according to Reb Shimon. Then we got into this machlokas about when you have an oven and you used a fire of orla in order to bake a bread. So machlokas Rebbe and the Chachamim. Rebbe says that the bread will be a problem because you baked it with fire of orla. The Chachamim say that don't worry, you can eat the bread. And we're trying to figure out who exactly would be the author who says that if you have a new oven and the first time you heated it up, it was with a fire of orla or kilei akerim, you'd have to break the oven. And we initially wanted to say that it's Rebbe, but we said that maybe not, and maybe it's Rabbi Eliezer. We'll get to that tomorrow. Cheve, peace out.